What do you make of what's happening with the Cowboys? Making a mistake?
I think the Cowboys are playing this perfectly. I think it's no surprise either. I mean, Jerry Jones is a very savvy businessman, and I think when he looks at the numbers and looks at what is the best possible course of action moving forward, I think they are doing this to absolute perfection. Because with Dez Bryant, you put the franchise on him, and you can not only put the franchise on him, but they're saying this is a placeholder. So they're kind of keeping him happy, saying we could still restructure, we could still sign you to a long-term deal, but you're locking him up so he can't go anywhere else. With DeMarco Murray, yes, he's the best back in the league. Yes, there wasn't another back within 500 yards of him, but you were talking about one of the best offensive lines in football with a quarterback in Tony Romo who can make plays for you. They need a solid running game. They don't necessarily need the best guy. And I think by letting him go out and test the market, you can be very... you can please him because he can go say, hey, I can go shop for more money. But I think what they're going to find out, there's not a lot out there. Because teams will pay for a lot. But as we've seen, a trend as of late in the NFL, the last decade probably, teams are saying, you know what, running backs, we can find those on every street corner. Whether it's true or not, that's just the mentality of teams out there. So I think the Cowboys are saying, you know what, you go ahead and test the free market. If you think you can get paid more, go ahead. And if you can't find it, we'll be here waiting for you. And that might be the best option of all when DeMarco Murray goes out and says, man, maybe there isn't that much money out for me. I can go right back to Dallas. And then everybody's happy.
And the numbers support it. I mean, the franchise tag for a lineman is $13 million. Yeah. For a running back, it's $10.9.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even the money holds up about where the importance lies. And I think another key thing is, does DeMarco Murray want to run behind the best O-line in the game?
Right.
That's an asset the Cowboys have. So I'm with Danny on this. Like, this is a perfect play. Dez Bryant, invaluable. You got to make that happen. DeMarco Murray, I mean, I think it's kind of like the Broncos, you know, when they had 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They could put anybody back there and still have a solid running game. Now, of course, he's talented, and if they can bring him back and it makes sense for them, do it. But this play is perfect.
They're really, you're talking about the Broncos, I played on them. And
so you know a little bit more.
Yeah, well, that was with Mike Shanahan.
Yeah.
And Gary Kubiak was the offensive coordinator. Alex Gibbs, one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. They run this zone blocking scheme. It was very cutting edge at the time. Now a ton of teams are doing it. And it really was. When you saw them winning Super Bowls when Terrell Davis goes down, Mike Anderson, Clinton Portis, they kept, now these are all great backs, but a lot of people would argue they were backs of the system. And when they went to other teams, they didn't have the same types of numbers. So you saw that, and that's really what started that trend was the Denver Broncos. When they started doing it, other teams took notice and said, all right, we don't have to necessarily, go out and spend a fortune for a running back because it's not a good investment. When you look at long-term returns, you might get a year or two on a guy, but once they start to wear down, it doesn't make much sense.
I wanted the Broncos would have had the same philosophy if Terrell Davis had never hurt his knee.
Exactly.
It's very easy to say that, well, we can just put anybody back there, and they did, and they didn't win one Super Bowl after Terrell Davis shredded his knee. That guy was on his way to a Hall of Fame career, and he was never the same running back. So I hear your point about putting anybody behind offensive lines, just stating that. I think the Cowboys are making a mistake, and here's why for this reason. They're playing, to use your term, Kate, a kind of risk-reward, thinking, well, if we don't re-sign DeMarco Murray and we don't want him, Adrian Peterson is out there.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's why I think they're playing a dangerous game of chicken from this standpoint, because the Cowboys have to realize nothing is going to happen unless the Minnesota Vikings say it's going to happen, because he's owed $12.75 million by the Minnesota Vikings. He's going to count $15 million against the cap. If they decide to cut him, that's $2.4 million in dead cap money. The Cowboys are thinking, you know what, with all the acrimony that's gone on between Adrian Peterson and his agent, but Minnesota's like, hey, we don't have to come to you. You have to come to us if you want to get out and work this out. And even if it doesn't work out, Adrian Peterson, they decide to let DeMarco Murray go. You're trying to tell me your alternatives are people like C.J. Spiller, Ryan Matthews, Mark Ingram. You can put those guys behind that offensive line. They're not going to be DeMarco Murray. That's why I think they're making mistakes.
I don't think they need another 1,800-yard rusher.
I understand
they don't need a leading rusher. They need somebody serviceable. So you go get one of those backs who are all really good backs.
Yeah,
and then
but
you
they're
can
not
also
DeMarco
draft
Murray.
somebody. There's a lot of good talent coming out where you don't have to waste a first-round pick. You could wait till the second or third and see what running backs are available.
Okay, but Danny,
that's asking a lot, though. That's asking a lot.
Would you take DeMarco or would you take Adrian Peterson?
Oh, between those two, I would go with DeMarco Murray. I think there's just way too much distraction, baggage, whatever you want to call it about Adrian Peterson. Exceptional back, but I don't think that's a headache that Jerry Jones needs right now in that locker room.
Well, and the continuity.
And that comes back to my other point with continuity. DeMarco Murray has been behind this offensive line the last couple of years. And believe me, nobody thought Zach Martin would turn out to be one of the 3 best offensive linemen when they drafted him out of Notre Dame. Nobody saw that coming. Well, that's because his son played with him, that's why. But look at Jerry Jones drafting Travis Frederick from Wisconsin the year before. He got crushed for that pick. How are you taking this guy in the first round? That guy's one of the best centers in the National Football League. DeMarco Murray behind that offensive line, that gives that offense that juice. You can't put a C.J. Spiller behind that offensive line because he's been perennially unhealthy compared, relatively speaking, to DeMarco Murray.
Because he's played behind bad offensive lines.
But also he's not a downhill kind of between the tackles runner.
Right.
He's a different kind of back. You know they're not bringing Joseph Randle back. I mean, the Cowboys, talk about a distraction. Come on, they're not bringing that guy back. That's why I think they're not playing it right. Why I think it's a big mistake because of the fact I think they're banking on that Adrian Peterson is going to be available. That can't be your plan B. If plan A is not going to work by allowing DeMarco Murray.
Isn't plan A to bring DeMarco Murray back?
I think, see, that's what I think is the let DeMarco Murray. He's disgruntled. He thinks he's owed this ton of money. And they're saying, go ahead.
I wouldn't let him
Get
test
that out of your system.
I wouldn't let him test free agency anyway because there's a team called the Indianapolis Colts out there. You don't think that guy would not make Andrew Luck better with that offense? Why even allow that? Because to your point,
I think that would be a great spot for him.
I think it would be a perfect spot for him.
If you want to go and do that, take that risk because it's a risk for DeMarco Murray to leave that offensive line too. I think you made a great point.
But to that point, it is a risk for everybody involved. But if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you know you have a guy behind that offensive line that you were a bad rule away from getting an NFC Championship game against the team which you dominated running the football when you beat Seattle on the road in the regular season. Why not minimize that risk? Because you're right. He's going to go out there in free agency, and he's not going to get the money he wants, or somebody who has a lot of cap space may overpay for him and bring that
time out. So, okay, you feel like DeMarco has more to lose than the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he has more to lose. I think he's either going to find somebody who's going to overpay him, or he's going to be able to come back to the Cowboys and run behind that line. I think it's a perfect move by the Cowboys.
Okay. Yeah.
I think they're playing it completely perfectly. I don't think they just throw money at him. I think he's got to get out of the system. If he just signs with them, he's going to think, what could I have gotten on the open market? Well, how much are teams willing to pay me? Now he goes out there, he sees, and he has to weigh whether he wants a little bit more money or he wants to go play behind that line and continue
contend for a Super Bowl.
Yeah. So
it's going to be really interesting to watch it out. I think one of the other things too, it's not so much of when you talk about the running backs, you can just plug anybody in. When you talk about schemes, now that has become a school of thought. But I think it's also too the movement of the NFL, the way offenses are operating now. We don't see two-back systems where you run it on first and second and you throw it on third down. You see more priority and emphasis put on receivers because of the passing game. The rules benefit the passing game, so you would be more willing to risk losing a running back than you would a receiver.
Jacksonville has $67 million in cap space. You don't think they're not going to throw the Brinks truck at him?
Good for him. Good for him if they do.
And then they put a season and they get a season split behind the Cowboys offensive line. It's not the same thing. It's a whole different deal.
You get some other players.
Freddie, you asked you this in the morning meeting because I think it's interesting. Dez Bryant has been very vocal about the Cowboys not giving him a long-term deal, saying he wishes that they were loyal to him, so on and so forth. What's so bad about a franchise tag? We had Coach on here last week saying, I take the money. I bet on me each and every time.
Because we know Dez Bryant is not just going to look at getting no less than $12.8 million and say, oh, I'm not going to play well for the Cowboys. I'm good now. No, he's going to say, I'm going to prove to you blankety blanks that you should have signed me to a long-term deal. And if you don't do it, to Danny's point, in a wide receiver age, somebody's going to give Dez Bryant what he's looking for. So if you get franchised by an NFL team, you know what the money is. It's not they're franchising you and you're going to lose money if you're Dez Bryant. You're going to gain money and gain a foothold where you go out there and do what you did last year, where for my money he was the best pure receiver in the National Football League. If the Cowboys don't pay you, somebody else.
But it's about. But as an NFL player, you have a very finite amount of time where you can earn your money, and you have injuries that come into play. You have a bad year that comes into play, and you're only getting that 1 year. That's why, as a player, and you're Dez Bryant, you are offended that they're not willing to guarantee you more than just one league. I think it's completely fair for a player to get upset about getting a franchise tag.
Yeah, this was his chance to lock up more guaranteed money.
Which everyone wants,
and tons of risk for him playing this year.
All right, so when we come back, guess who's joining the desk? I don't know if we can actually we might have to get running one of you guys. I don't want to, though.
I'll take a break.
You will? Yeah, because, you've been dominating the conversation. J.R. Smith with a monster jam on his former team, but wasn't good enough to make best in-game dunk last month. The human highlight film will tell us. We're talking about Dominique Wilkins. He'll join us in just a few moments. Danny, he's tired of just bringing that sauce on us. He's like, you gotta hydrate, and then you gotta come back. Okay. We'll be back in just a few moments.